This is Tanya Justin from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I wanted to talk today about the LearnUWEC Executive Committee Roadmap Task Force and the report that we have put together. As many of you know from previous meetings and updates, we have been going through this process for about a year. It was at July's retreat in 2013 where through discussion we had come up with the idea and thought that maybe we need to have some sort of a process to better identify our roadmap for the future to help us make decisions and determine our priorities and so forth moving forward. Our process officially launched in September of 2013 with our initial meeting and is currently wrapping up with the development of the report, in which we still have some next steps here in the coming months to look at and examine and determine our path. So as you can see here, we kept majority of our meeting minutes and our brainstorming notes and different resources and so forth in Google Docs. We had our initial meeting starting on September 16th, 2013, where we really were focusing on determining what our goals were, what were some of the parameters, and then also what were some of our desired outcomes. So why were we undertaking this process? Through several meetings in the fall, we ended up coming up with 3 goals for this roadmap task force and what we wanted to accomplish. And those 3 goals were, first of all, to prioritize financial support for system-wide instructional applications. We needed some assistance, we felt like, and a better understanding of where we were as a system to understand our priorities and where we should be funding certain technology applications, support for those applications, and so forth. The other thing is we wanted to, as a second goal, build capacity for responsiveness for future needs. We have had several budget cuts in the previous years and felt a bit limited, as we know that we're hearing from the campuses, on the ability to actually be responsive to future trends and explore some of the emerging technologies and pedagogical practices. The final thing is we wanted to really develop an understanding of the learning ecosystem within the system. And this may be a much larger process than what we can do in this project. However, there are lots of things going on nationally and internationally, as well as on the individual campuses, and having an understanding of what the UW system learning ecosystem with can help us make better decisions as an executive committee. In January, we developed a 4-stage project plan for this process. And the 4 stages included a UW system environmental scan, an external environmental scan, community engagement, and finalization. We felt these 4 stages would help us accomplish our 3 goals that we had outlined. So as you can see, once we had completed the planning from September 2013 to January 2014, and actually had come up with this 4-stage process that we felt would help us in gathering key information and analyzing that information to then produce this report. So after we had completed the planning stage and in January had come up with our 4 phases of our project plan, we had moved into what we're calling the information gathering and analysis phase. Now, one of the keys to this phase, as many of you know, was the internal and external scan that was performed by our consultants of MindWires and resulted in this report that you see here in front of you, which most of you, if not all of you, have received previously via email. We felt it was very important for us to better understand what was going on throughout the entire UW system by looking at pertinent planning documents as well as interviewing key folks as designated by the provost that were leaders on the campus to understand what the needs were of campuses, what their values were, and what their plans were for the future. We also wanted to look outside of UW system as to what are other UW systems doing and what are some of the national trends and how would those better inform what we're doing at UW system. So this report was one of the keys that informed our roadmap process. Another key that informed our process, or informed the report, I should say, was the summit, which was actually came out of discussions at a Learn at UW Executive Committee meeting earlier this year. One of the things that the task force had discussed and found very important was the fact that we have conversations with those that are not only leaders on their campuses and technology and the pedagogical use of technology, but also that those are in the trenches. We wanted to make sure that we had a heterogeneous group of faculty and staff and administrators come together and have some key discussions and dialogues around some of the things that we're facing as a system to help us better understand what should be our strategic directioning for the future. The summit held in June was one of those key features that really helped us gather a significant amount of information for analysis that led to the report. Now, at the summit, we took it very much as an opportunity to collect information and collect data that came out through discussions to better understand, again, what the individual campus's values and priorities were, what their needs and concerns were, and so forth. Each of the sessions, the day-long session as well as some individual key discussions, we kept very meticulous notes to help us better inform the development of the actual roadmap. We used the data collected in the reports as well as the notes from the summit and actually analyzed it using more rigorous qualitative methods to help determine what were the values of UW system and what were some things that we needed to include in our roadmap report as the strategic directioning for UW system 3 years out. Here you'll see on the screen as an example of some of that analysis as me and my team were working through this. So after the planning stage, and now after we've completed our information gathering and analysis stage through the environmental scans, which included document analysis, interviews, we also surveyed campus representatives in helping us better develop the topics for discussion at the summit, as well as the information sharing and showcasing of campuses. And what a main key was the focus groups or the discussions around key issues that we had as part of that information and gathering and analysis stage, which were conducted at the summit. And so then we moved to the second phase, or I'm sorry, the third phase here, which has been quite short, which is sort of our outcomes phase, which we've really done this analysis. We're understanding the values of UW system. We're identifying some key theme areas for directioning, as well as some more specific directions, and then the overall roadmap report, which you were emailed this past weekend. Now, all of you should have received the roadmap report from Lorna as of Friday, as well as yesterday a summary of the report, which is just a condensed version of some of the key issues as a ready reference if you haven't had time to read the full report, which I think is approximately 20 pages. I just want to point out that both of these documents are very much in draft form, that we have just been working barely over a month on these, and so I think this is a great opportunity to get feedback from the Learn at UW Executive Committee as we more finalize these documents before getting feedback from others in the system. So I want to focus a bit of time. The first three sections of the roadmap report are pretty much giving you more in-depth view of the process that we went through for those of you that may be new to the roadmap task force and our efforts in the past year. I wanted to focus this a little bit more on the last two sections, sections 4 and sections 5, which focus on what do we value as a system. So what are some of our shared interests, which were really fascinating and fabulous to hear about and in our in the notes and the discussions, as well as findings in our analysis, and also talk a little bit more about the specific themes for strategic directioning of the future. So one of the values that we heard about over and over from each of the individual campuses is that they really had an overwhelming commitment to ensuring that their students' needs were being met or are met. I think that each university or each campus feels that it has a somewhat unique student body and that their focus is really driven based off of the needs of those students. So given the importance of quality education for our students, we are dedicated to identifying the needs, interests, and wants of our student population. It was clear that folks throughout UW system believe in supporting all faculty effectively. There was a recognition that providing quality assistance to instructors has implications, particularly regarding meeting the students' needs and creating an institutional environment that values the quality of teaching and learning with technology. It seemed it was very important to faculty and staff to understand what other campuses are doing in regards to research development, teaching, and learning practices. They definitely, the folks through the summit as well as the interviews and so forth, wanted to make sure that there was a way that they could not only share successes on their campus, but they could hear about successes on other people's campuses. So as a system, we believe that by concentrating on creating a plan in which different campuses can efficiently and effectively share ideas, faculty support would be enhanced. Many had expressed an underlying value for UW's system and the desire for informed and engaged decision-making. Members of the UWS community really want a transparent process about decision-making, specifically decisions to fund, acquire, pilot, and support learning technologies. Now, some challenges facing the UW system are unique to the institution, while others are shared by many universities, including monetary resources, which is a continued shared concern for the majority of institutions. Most campuses across UW system do appreciate the fiscal conservativeness in meeting the needs of their students, but yet there definitely was a sense that many of them feel that they may not be as successful as desired at times due to these constraints. As we discussed previously, not only do different campuses want to hear more about what other campuses are doing, they also feel that there needs to exist a structure that balances the pedagogical and the technological opportunities of the system, while taking into account the individual campus's needs in the context of UW system's desired results. There's definitely an underlying value and desire for strategic collaboration and thoughtful communication, while respecting, though, the individual characteristics with a clear direction for desired outcomes within a structure of UW system that will facilitate opportunities and growth more than constraints of process and tradition. Furthermore, strategic efforts that are supported throughout the UW system to collectively engage all in research on teaching and learning with technology, as well as endeavors in the classroom, to better retain and improve student outcomes through technology-facilitated instruction can effectively utilize financial resources while excelling the UW system's national position as a leader in teaching and learning with technology, attracting new and entrepreneurial opportunities. Something of little focus has really been how can we as a system, with all of these magnificent things going on, really excel UWS as a leader. Many of those campuses and staff and faculty who have participated in previous grants really work to do that, to excel UW system as a leader. These values, as we've shared here today, really are values that can help guide the vision for UW system and prioritize our goals and actions, which we'll discuss here in a bit more detail. Let's talk a little bit about the roadmap and the key areas that we've identified. The first theme that we've identified in our strategic directioning for the future is that we should continue a system-wide LMS at UW System. Faculty and staff alike realize the benefits of a system-wide LMS. We also see this very comparable to other systems in the country. This seemed very clear that it's efficient and allows us to better support our faculty and better enhance teaching and learning. Now, there were some other considerations around continuing a system-wide LMS that we should contemplate in developing our roadmap for the future, and they're listed here on this slide. Now, as discussed in continuing a system-wide LMS and in the previous theme, there was a need really across system for constructing system-wide faculty support structures. And so a way that we could provide resources to individual campuses to help in planning faculty support, recommendations for faculty support, and also at a system level, increasing professional development opportunities. And more specifically in some of the national trends that are coming is, what sort of repository or how can we be supporting through technology infrastructure a place to sort of store and share these resources very easily. And so these were second theme here of constructing faculty support structures, some things we should be looking forward to in the next 3 years. As we know, every campus and UW system really values meeting their students' needs when it comes to teaching and learning, in particular with technology. What we are finding in strategic directioning is, although UW system and several of the campuses undertake efforts to survey their students and understand their needs, that there may be an area of need in interpreting these system level and national reports in the context of UW system's priorities, which would provide understanding of students' instructional and non-instructional needs to help guide decisions. They also are looking for a plan, a concerted effort to gauge the current and future academic technology needs for students for the UW system. So now taking what we're already doing in UW system and taking that to the next step to more of an interpretation that can guide practices and decisions would be very well used by the campuses and a great move for UW system. The next theme was around developing a UW system community. There is a real need for more of a system level collaboration, collaborative opportunities to work together to tackle key issues like intellectual property or accessibility, also ways to facilitate partnerships, possibly through grants, to explore innovative pedagogical practices. We've seen these greatly decrease in the last few years, and we really need to bring those back in order to develop this sense of community. Also, engaging faculty in more of these happenings by providing them incentives to participate. And then also, although there's lots of resources out there, there isn't really a strong strategic plan to communicate this throughout UW system, including press. And so there's several ways that we can push forward to really develop the sense of community across UW system to bring us together to work more as a whole rather than just the sum of our parts. And also there was lots of discussions and should be an exploration into the bridging of OPID and LTDC. At one time, the division seemed quite natural, but at these times, we should look to bridge those strategically. The final theme that we have here is identifying guidelines and practices. There really was a need across the campuses to have a system level collaboration or collective that would help provide guidelines and practices to inform the campuses on their policies and their services regarding data planning, online learning, accessibility, just on how to engage faculty, on LMS use, and those sorts of things. Also, there was a discussion of having a shared data plan. And so we know in the time of big data and learning analytics that there's a lot going on. And I think folks are really looking for something at the system level that can come together where folks can develop a data plan and practices and processes and recommendations to answer key questions that are driven by this move. And then finally, how do we translate research findings into campus recommendations to help the individual campuses in their own strategic planning and implementation processes? So as you can see here, we're moving to the point of finalization. So we have gone through the first 3 stages, and although we have a draft of the report here, and we do have some thematic areas for strategic directioning, we definitely understand our values as a system. We need to conduct some next steps here. One, starting with this meeting here today and gathering feedback from all of you on the roadmap that is proposed, again in draft form, but also some next steps in engaging the CSRG as well as the individual campuses. So for next steps, once we at LearnUWEC Executive Committee have gathered the feedback of our members and produced a more final report, we should look for a way to gather feedback from the UW system institutions and stakeholders. We could do that possibly through a survey to understand whether people agree with some of the things that we have shared in our strategic directioning, and also how important some of these things are to folks. And determining at what order will these roll out here in our roadmap for the next 3 years. Something that's always very important in moving forward with any strategic directioning document is assessing the financial and budgetary implications and actually moving forward with any of these areas that have been discussed. And I think part of that will also be a reflection on the CSRG strategic planning that they're undergoing at the same time. Now, as I mentioned, we can gather feedback from the UW system institutions in helping us prioritize our goals and action items, and also many of us on the committee and our diversity of roles and campuses can help do that as well, but it will need to be something that's done in the coming months. Finally, we need to ensure coordination with the current initiatives and the stakeholder groups throughout UW system, and make sure to identify the next steps for implementation, that this roadmap is not a document that dies in our digital filing cabinets, but actually helps us in the next 3 years move into the future. So thanks all.